National Council of Resistance of Iran. We're joined by our audience here in Washington, but also we're joined online by our audience all over the world. The event is live streamed on our website, ncrius.org, but also our other social media platforms, including Twitter at NCRIUS. Before I introduce our distinguished panel, I want to say a few words about why we're having this conference today. After a long wait, since June, finally, a new round of talks have started in Vienna since last month, which so far has not produced any results, nor should anyone expect it would go anywhere anyways. So while so much attention is consumed with Vienna, there are many other very important aspects related to Iran that needs to be addressed. The most important being inside Iran, what the people of Iran are going through, what they're asking for, and what's the whole internal situation in the country. We now have Ebrahim Raisi, a mass murderer at the helm, who was involved in the massacre of 30,000 political prisoners in 1988, 90% of them being associated with the MEK. His selection as the president of the regime was meant to frighten the Iranian population, but in the past 3.5 months, we have seen that that hasn't happened to the country. We have seen a lot of protests going on in Isfahan and 3-day protests by the teachers in over 100 cities across the country, and many more. We also have other very important aspects of the rogue behavior of the Iranian regime. It's terrorism, its support and export of extremism and Islamic fundamentalism, its missile program, its drone activities, what they're doing in the region to destabilize the country, and many more. And so our panel today is going to speak to those aspects and suggest a policy that would address all of those aspects of the rogue behavior of the regime and not just the nuclear issue. With that, let me introduce our distinguished panel today. We have with us Honorable Joe Lieberman, former senator from Connecticut, who served for 24 years in the U.S. Senate in key committee assignments, including being the chair of the Senate Homeland Security Committee. He was also the Democratic vice presidential nominee in 2000. Thank you so much, Senator, for joining us from New York. Thank you. And joining us from Florida is Mr. David Shedd, former acting director of the Defense Intelligence Agency, former special assistant to the president, and senior director for intelligence programs and reform. He's also a visiting fellow at the Heritage Foundation. Thank you so much, David, for joining us. Here at the panel with us, we have Ambassador Bob Joseph, former Undersecretary of State for Arms Control and International Security. He was also former special assistant to the president and also was senior director for proliferation strategy, counter-proliferation and homeland defense at the White House. Thank you, Bob, for attending. And we have Professor Matthew Kronig from Georgetown University. He's the deputy director of Scowcroft Center for Strategy and Security and the director of Global Strategy Initiative at the Atlantic Council. And we have also Mr. Jonathan Rui, JINSA director for foreign policy. Prior to joining JINSA, he worked at the Bipartisan Policy Center. Thank you all for attending this very timely and important panel. We're also releasing our new report that I want to just take a few minutes to elaborate on just like one part of this report. We have a copy of it right here. available for the journalists who are here and others who are here. We're just releasing it today. Let me just spend a few minutes on this report. Back in October, actually October 6th, right here, we had a press conference, and we revealed various aspects of the UAV program run by the Iranian Revolutionary Guards and the Quds Force. We disclosed 8 industries who were involved in manufacturing the UAVs and 7 UAV utilization centers all over the country. If you look at the map of Iran, these are the places that we discussed back in October 6th. In that circle, you see Daswara base, which is both the headquarters of the aerospace force of the Revolutionary Guards. This is the satellite imagery of that. And then here is the organizational structure about the IRGC aerospace force. You can see that now IRGC has 5, aerospace force has 5 forces. One of them is actually UAV command. And we talked about the commander and all the other activities that they're doing, including we talked about Saeed Aghajani, the role he plays, where he's stationed. He's actually at the headquarters of both aerospace force, but also the headquarters of UAV command is actually there at Daswara garrison. And then what happened was 3 weeks later, October 29, 2021 this year, the Treasury Department designated a number of individuals and entities in connection with the UAV program of the regime. As you can see, OFAC saying, designating Saeed Aghajani under Executive Order 13224, that's like terrorism. And then later on in November 30th, Congress got involved and very quickly passed in the House Foreign Affairs Committee a very bipartisan resolution, HR 6089, Stop Iranian Drones Act, introduced by Mix and McCall, the chair and the ranking member, and it was almost unanimously passed in the House and is now before the full floor. So the reason I mentioned that is that like the significance of the information that we revealed before, but also highlight why it's so important to focus on what we're revealing today, which is that we're revealing for the first time the IRGC front companies that are actually used for the UAV program. These are the network of companies with civilian titles. They're very, benign-looking companies that, but in fact, they are at the service of the Revolutionary Guards for the purposes of procuring parts, material, and accessories for their UAV program. One of them is actually what they call Iranian Aviation Space Industries Association, which in reality is a core of groups and individuals with close ties with the Iranian Revolutionary Guards who use these front companies, civil-looking companies, to do what the IRGC itself cannot do. And we have elaborated on that and how they're actually helping the IRGC to circumvent sanctions and purchase accessories. And it's really a smuggling ring for the regime. But when you go on their websites, you look at them, you don't see any of those signs, but in fact, that's what they're doing. I'll give you just 2 examples of them. One of them, for instance, is Hamid Saidi. He's the director of one of those 15 companies that we are revealing today. It's called firmness Pasargad. You can see him, the shorter guy, showing the UAV navigation system to the supreme leader Ali Khamenei. You can see how close he is. And then what he's actually doing, he has done joint projects with the IRGC, building spy drones. He chaired the board of directors of this UAV working group, which is part of the that association I mentioned. He's very close to Saeed Aghajani, the person I just mentioned earlier, who was just designated as terrorist by the Treasury Department. He's also associated with the Quds Air Industries, which is the main body within the regime that is involved in producing the UAVs. The next person, Masoud Qasemi, he wears different hats. The picture on the right, you see that the airplane in the background. On the left is the Chamber of Commerce of Alborz province. He actually uses some of those elements to help the regime. He's a board of directors, a member of the Iranian Aviation Space Industries Association. He previously chaired that. He's a nephew of IRGC Brigadier General Saeed Qasemi, one of the hardcore Revolutionary Guard commanders who makes headlines in news in the Iranian media like every other week. He uses Alborz Province Chamber of Commerce to circumvent sanctions. So here is a list of 15 companies, and I don't want to go over all the details here. All the information is actually listed in this report that we're revealing today. But you can see that the first two of them I talked about them, and then we have the Iranian Research Organization for Science and Technology, and then you have Iranian Innovation and Acceleration Center. Actually, Hamid Saidi, the first person I showed you today, he's one of the main managers of this center as well. And then you have Farnas Pasargad, which is the one that Hamid Saidi is running. And then you have Balgostar Negah Asamanha Technology, which actually produces UAV parts in cooperation with the Airspace Force of the IRGC. Then you have Kharazmi Electronics Industries. You have the Iran-Bek part, Khabarmianeh. And then you have the Safa Production Distribution Cooperative Company, which is one of the subsets of the Iranian Aviation Space Industries Association. And then you have Arastec Aircraft Maintenance Service Company, and Maham Pergas Technology. Interestingly, that entity is headed by an RGC Brigadier General, who's also a pilot, Mohammad Nourouzi. And then we have Hezareh Sevam Industrial Alloy Development Company, and who works closely with the Ministry of Defense and the Atomic Energy Organization of Iran. And then you have Nazari Titanium Company, which is run by two brothers, Nazari brothers. They work very closely with the Ministry of Defense, Ministry of Oil, the Atomic Energy Organization, providing them with the things that they can't get it elsewhere. And then you have Sara Safe Tools and Noandishan Composite Structures Industrial Productions. Having said that, let me just say a few words. What we can conclude from this is that since Raisi took office, the Quds Force of the Revolutionary Guards has intensified its activities, including its UAV attacks, and they're spending billions of dollars on UAV and missile, and while 80% of the Iranian population live below the poverty line. So that's why we need to deal with firmness with this regime. No sanctions relief should be allowed. Congress should impose sanctions in addition to the legislation we have. We want to make sure that all of these front companies are also included. And at the end, the way that the Iran regime has handled all of the issues, certainly it's imperative for all of the UN Security Council resolutions to actually come back and be reimposed on that.